When I was about 4 years old, my grandfather sat me down for the first time and told me the story of his life. It is a story I have heard numerous upon numerous times, and every time I hear it, it gets better and more details tend to spill out about his life. For his 75th birthday, my family suggested the idea of him writing a book about his journey to the United States of America from France during World War II. We wanted his story to be around forever so our family would never forget it and others could learn from his experience. We also realized he would not always be around to share his story himself. I chose to write about him because I wanted the opportunity to learn as much about my grandpa as I could and also share his story with my class. From the 1930s to the 1940s, the Jewish population in France faced terrible discrimination. European Jews were constantly being used as scapegoats and blamed for all their economic hardships occurring in their countries. They were forcibly removed from their homes and taken to camps where they were poorly treated. Many times families were split up. My grandfather, Paul Wattenberg, was one of thousands of young boys who suffered at the hands of the Nazi regimes. Paul and his mother were living in Paris, France in 1939. He was just 7 years old and his dad, Leon, had gone to the United States by ship to look for business opportunities. Just 7 days later, Hitler attacked Poland and World War II began. Although my great-grandfather Leon tried to send for his family, the Nazi government in France had stopped all people from leaving the country. My grandfather and his mother were now trapped. My great-grandfather's brothers, Uncle Joe and Uncle Morris, had been drafted into the French army. They advised my grandpa to run for his life. My grandfather wrote, "So we set out for escape. I'll never forget the date, June 10th, 1940. I was 9 and my mother, Rachel, was 30 years old. The journey to France was difficult. They left in a car with 6 other passengers who included his Aunt Toby, her daughters Betty, and his grandfather Isaac and himself. The roads were crowded and few cars were moving. The Nazis were shooting everyone in sight. There was no gas, no food, and no electricity. My grandfather was starved since the rations were gone. After a few days, the car ran out of gas. They abandoned it and began to walk to Spain, which was about 600 miles away. My grandfather explains, "We took some clothes, but we had no choice but to leave behind most of the stuff that was in the trunk, including our photo albums. It must have been a difficult choice to make. I have simply left for sleepaway camp and found it hard to decide what I want to leave at home. I cannot imagine what it would have been like to know I would never see these things I cherish again." The journey became even more difficult. His mother paid a truck driver to take them to the border. German troops stopped the truck and forced them to surrender. The driver took them back to Paris where they were ordered to register. Life in Paris was horrible. Stories were spreading about the murder of thousands of Jews. Eventually, my great-grandma made contact with professional smugglers who would take them down to the French port of Marseilles. This area was known as the Free Zone, and they would be safer there. Unfortunately, soon the German officers began rounding up Jews in the free zone for deportation. My great-grandmother was frantic. One day she went up to a French policeman when the German officer had left his boat. She said, "I am here with my boy. I don't have any travel permits. You could probably destroy our lives. Have mercy." He told her he would look away and they ran to a safe hotel. My great-grandfather in America was trying his best to get them out of France. My great-grandmother visited the American embassy daily. Finally, they boarded the train for Lisbon. From there, they took a small refugee ship to America. The journey from France to the United States is only a 7-hour flight or 3,628 miles. For my grandfather, it was 3 months of hell. The seas were rough, with about 400 people sleeping in cramped quarters. My grandfather was seasick and near death. German U-boats were in the area and they were stopped. The German, however, let them continue. My grandfather was a lucky man, he explains. So when you talk about life, I realize that everything in life is luck. This is the whole story of life. It is critical for everything. Whether it's health, your business, your family, you need mazel, luck. My grandfather believed luck had saved his life along with his mother's courage that never wavered. Life in the States for an immigrant in the 1940s was very difficult. The discrimination and hardships my grandfather faced was very difficult to overcome. In schools, he was placed in special non-literate programs since he could not speak English. He was not even promoted and often teased by other students. Paul, however, was able to beat the hardships and learn to read so well he went to the New York University. He married and began his own clothing business, Adolfo. Today it's a huge success. My grandfather's life is an inspiration to all of us. He managed to overcome tremendous obstacles in his childhood and achieve many successes. Today he has 2 daughters, 1 son, and 8 grandchildren. His life is proof that luck and courage together can give one an extraordinary life.